Man, what a boring, uninteresting, non-eventful week it's been. There's absolutely nothing to talk about right now. Just a slow, ordinary week, nothing going on, no news to talk about, no crazy stories. Bland, normal, forgetful week. Regular old Wednesday, just everything is plain, another day on Earth. We're going to talk about the Titanic submersible today because what the fuck else would we talk about? Holy shit.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for tuning in. We love you so. Your human buddy Sam and his teddy friend. This is hello. The song's almost over. It's about to end. Let's start the show. Cancel the podcast.
All right, before we get into this, trigger warning. I'm going to be talking about submechanophobia. I can't think of the name. If you have a fear of the ocean, don't we all? This is terrifying. I don't know the name of it. I can type it out. I think it's thalassophobia. Whatever. I'm going to look it up after this. But if you're afraid of the ocean, big open spaces, being trapped somewhere, if you're claustrophobic, I don't know. Maybe you want to skip this episode because this is some pretty scary shit. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. Sam is out this week. He is actually getting me some salmon as we speak. So it's just you and me, baby. Stu and you. I should start my own podcast. Stu and you would be perfect. All right, I'm gonna stop fucking around. Okay, it's Wednesday, June 21st, approximately 10 o'clock p.m. And when I tell you I have been glued to my fucking phone regarding this missing Titanic submersible, there's so much right now. I don't even know where to start. In case you've been living under a rock or in a submersible, I had to. What happened earlier this week, Sunday the 18th, 5 people boarded a submersible to go down and explore the Titanic. And there was a businessman from, I believe, Pakistan and his teenage son, he's 19, a billionaire explorer, and then a French diver, and then there was the guy who was manning the submersible. The reason this story is so huge is, aside from the fact that it's essentially a missing group of people possibly not going to be found, is that this was not some sort of necessary expedition by a group of scientists to learn anything new about the Titanic. It was a group of dudes just wanting to go down there. Which, by the way, I'd imagine there's not much left to learn about the fucking thing because it's just a rotting mess, and we've seen enough pictures and video of it by now. Like, let it be. It's done. The company that built this submersible is called OceanGate, and it's a private company that takes super fucking rich people 2 miles down to take a gander at the Titanic. It costs $250,000 per seat, and from what I've read, it takes 2 hours to get down there, 2 hours to get back up, and then you spend basically 4 hours kind of exploring. So it's essentially an 8-hour round trip. This last Sunday, which was 3 days ago, the submersible went down there and they lost contact a little under 2 hours in. And because this is not a submarine where it essentially has all the equipment and gadgets and whatnot to deal with an emergency, a submersible relies on another ship for communication and all that. So if you lose communication, fucking uh-oh. Now, of course, anytime you're going 2.5 miles down into the ocean, there's going to be risks. There's going to be deadly risks. But part of the reason this story is so fucked is because a former OceanGate employee and pilot filed a lawsuit 5 years ago against the company, saying that there were like major safety concerns and something really bad will eventually happen. And here we are. Shortly after the lawsuit, the Manned Underwater Vehicles Committee of the Marine Technology Society, that's a mouthful, sent a letter to the CEO of OceanGate saying that this ship was dangerous because he wasn't allowing an outside party to test the safety of the vessel. So because it was a private company, this guy, Stockton Rush is his name, was just like, hey, it's cool, I got this, don't worry about it, it's safe, trust me. And now he's lost in the ocean with 4 other people in, it's like the size of a minivan. It's this little tube, and it's, I don't know. I personally, I don't think he had a death wish or anything. I think he was just a stupid guy and was cutting costs, which is not something you should be doing when you're going deep down into the ocean like that. Because this has been happening, there's been interviews that have surfaced, no pun intended, with him talking about the submersible. And at one point, he mentioned he could safely do this by breaking the rules. Hang on, here's the video.
And, you know, I've broken some rules to make this. I think I've broken them with logic and good engineering behind me. The carbon fiber and titanium, there's a rule you don't do that. Well, I did. I'd like to be remembered as an innovator. I think it was General MacArthur said, you're remembered for the rules you break. At some point, safety just is pure waste. I mean, if you just want to be safe, don't get out of bed, don't get in your car, don't do anything. At some point, you're going to take some risks.
Fucking crazy. And I get what he's saying. We risk our lives every day and we don't realize it, but those risks that we are taking are kind of essential for our existence. You can slip in the shower, but you need to take a shower. You can get into a car accident on the way to work, but you need to drive there, or you need to ride your bike, or however you get there. And the reason this sounds ridiculous is because going down to visit the Titanic isn't exactly on the same level as all of this, because I would argue the risk-reward factor is quite lopsided here. You don't have to go down there. If you've been on TikTok or Instagram or whatever social media app right now, you would be seeing all the memes and jokes and whatnot. And it's really hard. Sorry about that. It's really hard not to laugh at some of them because it's objectively hilarious seeing the submersible that was put together by a private company that used a video game controller to steer and parts from hardware stores. Some of these memes are kind of dark, and the ones that are flat out hoping they all die are kind of fucked up, but there's something poetic about a billionaire being trapped at the bottom of the ocean who would give away his entire fortune, I'm sure, to be saved right now. So I understand people feeling like, wow, these guys were fucking stupid. Me personally, I don't know. I'm kind of detached from it. I don't really care because I don't believe we should be going down there anymore. Pop in the fucking VHS of Titanic. Go on YouTube. There's plenty of videos. And this submersible, from what I've read, they don't even have a window they can look out. They hooked up a monitor and it projects the feed on a screen inside the submersible. So, and this is what I've seen a lot of people commenting on. This guy, this Stockton guy, he could have just taken the group down like 50 meters, fucked around for 2 hours, and like showed a playback feed of the Titanic, and no one would have known. Would it have been a scam? Probably, yes. But who the fuck would have been able to tell? Like, no one on board would have been like, Is that a live feed? Like, they wouldn't have known. It's such a fucking circus. Like, everything that has been happening. Like, just a few hours ago, the stepson of the billionaire posted a picture of himself at a Blink-182 concert and said, "It might be distasteful here, but my family would want me to be at the Blink-182 show as it's my favorite band and music helps me in difficult times." Why did you have to post that? You could have just gone. Nobody knows who you are, dude. Now we all do. Now we know what you look like. You could have just gone there, had a good time, listened to Blink-182, taken your mind off of everything. Like, it would have been fine, but instead you post this. Your dad, your stepdad is lost in a little minivan. And you're like, "Oh, yeah, Blink-182. And again, you could have just done that and nobody would have known. Why are you posting that shit? And then back to the circus, Cardi B saw this and posted a video saying, "Oh, this is fucked up. What the fuck are you doing?" Went after this guy. And then he retaliated and he, like, whatever you call it, retweeted and said, like, "Oh, Cardi B, your music is trash, blah, blah, blah." Like, why are you starting beef right now? Why are you being like this, dude? Then he retweeted an OnlyFans model. She posted this, like, thirst trap. I can't remember what it said exactly. It was like, "Can I sit on your lap?" And he retweeted it. And he put yes with, like, I think it was the heart emoji eyes. Why are you fucking doing this right now? This is not the time to be doing this stuff, buddy. What the fuck, man? Anyway, so as of right now, they haven't had any contact with them. And apparently there was banging heard it was like picked up by sonar. I don't know what's going on. I feel like it's just ocean noises. Like, we don't know what the fuck is going on down there. Let's be honest. But it could be them banging on the inside, but I feel like I don't know. I'm not saying there's some creature down there making those sounds, but again, we don't know what the fuck is happening, like, way down there. So I think when they initially dove down there, they estimated 96 hours of oxygen, but you have to think there's 5 grown men probably freaking the fuck out. They've probably had screaming fits. I'd imagine they're crying. So that 96 hours, I would imagine, is a lot shorter because they're, using up all this energy. And I don't know what's going on with their food and water, but if they were planning on only being down there for 8 hours, I would imagine they didn't bring, like, a few days worth of food. Or maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. But yeah, this is one of the most fucked up situations I think I've ever heard. You're in the pitch black. It's cold down there. It's really cold down there. I read they didn't wear shoes. Everyone's still got to use the bathroom, so they're probably shitting and pissing, and that stench has nowhere to escape. And then after a day or two, that shit is gonna start, like, becoming diarrhea. And I don't think there's a lot of toilet paper in there, so they've probably got this huge mess. I don't think they can wipe properly. I have no doubt they're throwing up down there, which, again, nowhere for that smell to escape. I can't imagine this fucking nightmare, dude. I wonder how long everything took to get serious, though. Like, that first hour and 45 minutes when everything was okay, I wonder what was going through the pilot's mind those few seconds when he realized they were in trouble, and how he told everyone. Like, how do you tell somebody that you fucked up and you're essentially lost? How do you reassure the passengers it's gonna be okay if you know it might not be. And as a passenger, how do you take that? And I wonder if he had hope they would be found, or if he realized right away they were fucked. It's like, it's so scary. And then that poor guy has his son with him. And I think the son is only 19. And the rest, I think, are early 50s. And then the oldest guy, I think, was like 75. Which is still young if you assume everyone is healthy enough to make it to 90 or whatever. I know this sounds kind of crazy, but this reminds me of September 11th, in that we're all glued to this story, and it's something we can't wrap our minds around. The horror these people are experiencing, and how these pivotal moments in our lives, we almost can't remember anything before it. And I know September 11th was obviously much, much bigger and worse, but I liken it to that day in that before this Titanic sub-story unfolded, it's hard to remember what the hell we were even talking about before this. Like, I cannot remember what I did over the weekend, and I had to really get my brain going on what the big story was before this. It was like Trump's indictment and the Hunter Biden thing, but it all seems so trivial when you imagine people are stuck 2 miles down in a submersible the size of a minivan with no food, no water, slowly running out of oxygen. And even if they were to surface somehow, that fucking thing is bolted from the outside. There's no way out unless someone else gets them out. So even if they float to the top, they have to pray the Coast Guard finds them in time, or they might as well be at the bottom of the ocean still. What's extra crazy about this is, as expected, there's a whole bunch of people that are saying it's a hoax or it was a hit on the Billionaire. And I saw some people even accusing the stepson of it because of how he was acting. And this stuff, it always happens. Like with the Boston Marathon bombing or anything huge, there's always people that are gonna assume it's a hoax or it's a distraction for something bigger. And that kind of stuff, it sucks people in. I remember, my bad, sorry. I remember when people said Kobe Bryant was killed as a distraction for coronavirus when it was just starting to happen. And that shit, it gets really ridiculous really fast. I think this was just rich dudes wanting to see the Titanic and brag about it, and shit went wrong because the company cut corners, and that's what it is. Sam actually had a theory that he's not totally serious about it, but he would be stoked if it were true, and it kind of makes sense, but it would be a long shot. He said this could be another balloon boy, and if you don't remember that story, it was a failed inventor who wanted his family to be on a reality show. So he lied and said his son climbed into, it was like a weather balloon contraption, and it floated away. And it was all over the fucking news. It was a huge story. They were just following this weather balloon like, oh my God, this little boy is trapped in there. It's what's going to happen when it deflates. And it turned out I think the thing finally crashed. And it turned out the kid was at home the whole time, hiding in the attic. And of course, they got all this attention and they were doing interviews and whatnot. And the kid ended up spilling the beans that the dad told him to go hide in the attic so they could be on TV. And I'm pretty sure that was the end of that. So Sam's theory, and he hopes this is right because it would mean everyone is okay. He hopes the Billionaire and the people on board all agreed to stage this getting lost in the ocean thing, even though they knew where they were the entire time. And Billionaire pays everybody on the team $1 million to stick to their story, and then another $1 million to maybe a couple of guys on the Coast Guard who would miraculously find them at the last minute just before they ran out of oxygen, and then you have a story. Billionaire says, hey guys, I have this plan where we can get really famous. It's not about the money. We just want the spotlight. We're going to get really famous. We're going to pretend we're going to be lost, and I'm going to give we'll give the coordinates to the Coast Guard guys. They're going to find us at the last minute, and boom, you have a Netflix movie or a series. You have books, you have interviews with magazines. It would push these guys into the spotlight. And that's what billionaires love. They love that shit. They don't do all this stuff for money anymore because money is meaningless. Look at Elon Musk. He loves the spotlight. He loves everyone talking about him. He wants to be a rock star. And yeah, it's a stretch. It's just a stupid idea. But it could make sense for this billionaire to do that. The billionaire who was lost in the ocean and realized money isn't everything, blah, 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 blah. But again, that's just a wild theory, just a fantasy that's likely not going to happen. So tomorrow morning, they're supposed to run out of oxygen, and I don't think it's like an exact like meter in the sub that shows, but I think it's just a rough estimate. I personally think they've been dead. They probably died the day of. And based off the poor design and description of how dangerous it was, if they went an hour and 45 minutes down and lost contact, there's a very good chance that fucking thing just imploded from the pressure, and it's possible they died that very day. Which I would hope happened, because the alternative of them stuck at the bottom next to the Titanic, or even in the Titanic somehow, pitch black, alone with their thoughts, is so much more horrifying than the implosion, which from what I've heard is instantaneous, to where they wouldn't even know what was happening before they felt any pain. All right, so this was a fun episode. I didn't know what else to talk about. Like, this is such a wild story, and I've been so stuck on it like everyone else, and I would have eventually ended up talking about this anyway in the episode, and I probably would have talked about it for so long that it would have essentially been what the whole episode was about anyway. So there you go. After I stop recording, I'm gonna get right back on my phone and see if there's any updates, which there probably is, the way that this story is unfolding. It's so fast, and I'm probably not gonna sleep tonight, if I'm being honest here. Like, this is unlike any story I think I've ever heard before, or one that I can remember anyway. Obviously, I hope they're okay, but it's looking extremely bleak right now. It really puts things into perspective, though. Right now, there's a homeless man sleeping on the street that a billionaire would trade places with in a heartbeat. I'm not trying to say the homeless man has it good. Life is hard, of course, but sometimes these stories make us realize we are lucky to simply be breathing air. And on that note, that'll do it. Thank you to the patrons. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all the comments and messages and all that shit that keeps us going. Sam will unfortunately be back next week. We're going to do something a little more lighthearted, but this story I felt like needed to be talked about, because how could you not? Like, what else are we talking about right now? Anyway, Stu, did you have anything you'd like to add? Well said. By the way, you're so handsome and funny and smart and handsome. Hug your loved ones. That's it. Give them a hug. Surprise them with a hug. After this episode, get up and go hug your partner, sibling, parent, friend, roommate, whoever. Give them a hug because you can. If you're in a grocery store right now with them, hold off on the hug until after they return their shopping cart to the cart return. Otherwise, they don't deserve a hug. All right, thank you for listening or watching, and see you next week.